Ridiculous Crime is a production of iHeartRadio.
Elizabeth.
Scoodle-doo.
What's up, my girl?
Nothing much. How you doing?
I've been looking forward to seeing you. And here you are.
And here I am.
Yeah, I got a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
You'll never guess what it is.
Mm-hmm.
What size are my shoes? That's not the question.
Size 3.
No, good guess. The question actually is, do you know it's ridiculous?
I do. I'm a name connoisseur.
Yes, we both are. We share that.
I like funny names. Mm-hmm. I respect names, except for all those like tragedies, as they say, that end in, But
yeah.
And apologies if you have one of those. You didn't pick the name. So the other day I was listening to Amy Poehler's podcast.
Okay.
And she had Michael Schur on, who created Parks and Rec and was worked on The Office and all. And he was talking about creating names for characters and some of like the hilarious names that they've had on like Parks and Rec.
Oh, I'm not familiar.
Mona Lisa Saperstein.
Oh, damn.
Like you have to make sure
good.
No one else has the name. There was one, I think it was like Sue Gretzky Montalban. I can't remember.
Sue Gretzky, like one name with a dash?
Yeah, Sue hyphen Gretzky. I think that's what it was. Anyway, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Live with it. Anyway, so knowing this, like I thought it was really funny. The interns forwarded me a message that we got on Instagram from Mark McCubbin.
Okay.
And it's a post on Instagram from Elite College Football with the craziest names in college football.
Oh, these are always
2025 season.
Yes.
Because that's another thing I love is the Key and Peele skit with like the names they made up. These are real. And I double checked it because I thought, there's no way.
Oh, yeah, no, totally.
They're real.
This is like the Brickashaw Ferguson.
The first one, I don't want to say it out loud. Noah is his first name, but his last name is Knigga.
Oh, I know which one I know which one he is.
Okay, yeah. Then there's General Booty.
Yes.
And he kind of looks like a weird Ken doll. Nitro Tuggle.
Wow.
Nitro Tuggle. King Large.
Yes. His family had fun.
And his picture is pretty epic.
He lives King Large.
He's all about that. Mobility.
No.
Yeah.
For real?
He's real too. M-O-H. Bility.
Oh, so okay.
Then Dude Person.
Get out. Dude Person?
Dude Person.
Yes. Is he from like Wyoming?
He's from whatever the bears are.
Cow bears?
No. It's like a purple thing going on. I don't know. Blazin Lono Wong.
Yes. Blazin Lono?
Yeah, Lono.
Wow.
There's Sir
The
Bible.
Legend of Lono?
Sir Bible.
Wow.
Sirr. He's got another epic picture.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. What else? Demon Clowney.
Demon Clowney?
Demon Clowney.
Mom and Dad just went for broke. They're like, you know what?
Yeah.
That's got to be Jadavion's brother or cousin, Jadavion Clowney.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's news to me. Sure. There's a guy who was on Notre Dame Fighting Irish, Charles Du, D-U, but he uses the Chinese characters for his name on his uniform.
Does he?
Yeah, so it just looks like that.
Oh, I love that.
And then Rocky Beers.
Rocky Beers.
Beers. And he has a mustache. He's like teletransported from the 70s. Deuce Knight.
Yes.
Legend Journey.
That's beautiful.
Pookie Arterberry. And then we wrap it up with...
That sounds like a name you came up with.
It totally is. Grant Bierman.
Grant Bierman?
Bierman. But he's Grant Bierman.
The Bierman household.
Yeah, so Pookie Arterberry. The names are just so good.
Those are all
Dude
good.
Person.
Dude Person, that's classic.
Yeah, so they're ridiculous, but like in a beautiful way.
Yes, in a very like celebratory of life way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We have to celebrate every aspect of life.
I love your spirit.
Thank you so much.
Do you know what also is ridiculous, Elizabeth?
Tell me.
I have a story for you. I picked this one out extra special for you. It's kind of like thank you for like how you hooked me up with the Arnstein episode. And it made me my man, Arnold the Brain Rothstein.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I was like, I got to do Elizabeth is solid. For you, today, I have a NorCal story. I know you enjoy those.
I do.
It's the tale of a gentleman thief, which I know you also love.
Love that.
He's a Wild West outlaw. That part's for me. But he's a folk hero. That part's for you.
Love that.
And he's also a poet.
Love this.
He would rob stagecoaches and leave poetry for the law.
Stop it.
Yes. He was the rare Wild West outlaw who was also afraid of horses.
Okay.
Which means he fled every stagecoach robbery on foot.
Or on a penny farthing.
Yes. He was also notoriously polite, well-mannered. He never cussed, never used violence, never mistreated a lady. I just want to tell you all this up top so you don't have to worry.
This is incredible.
Yeah. And he only wanted to get his revenge against Wells Fargo.
Oh, I love this so much.
He was a hero of the people, Elizabeth. Elizabeth, his name was Black Bart.
Get out of town.
Yeah. Buckle up, Buttercup. This is Ridiculous Crime, a podcast about absurd and outrageous capers, heists, and cons. It's always 99% murder-free and 100% ridiculous.
Yahoo!
Oh, Elizabeth.
Oh, Zaron.
Now, I know you have a soft spot for nonviolent gentlemen or gentlewomen, also especially thieves.
Yeah.
Now, you've covered a few. Thieves who operate with style, panache,
Oh, yeah.
make their way through the world, sailing on that wind of criminality. Now, who is this Black Bart? He doesn't sound like me. He would up front be one of your people.
No.
He was, as I said, an outlaw folk hero poet.
Okay.
Operating in NorCal in the 1870s and 1880s.
He's like an early, Peter Coyote.
Totally. High time of the Old West, right? For starters, he's definitely my kind of guy because, for instance, Black Bart was a self-applied nickname.
Yes.
Like how I dubbed myself Dizzy.
Dizzy,
yes. I should have
yes.
never told you that. Anyway, my man Black Bart didn't trust the 19th century press to give him a good nickname. So he's like, call me Black Bart.
I believe it because we know how the papers were then.
Right?
They did you dirty.
Dirt. Hey, now he was born.
They'd be like, Pickle Nose Johnson. And he's like, wait, what? No.
Bluetooth Gregory. Now, this dude's born in Norfolk, England, 1829.
Okay.
All right. But his parents named him Charles Bowles. Third of 10 children. He was not going to inherit the family spread. That was clear. So he had to make his way in the world. And true to this show, he chose crime. But not at first, Elizabeth. At first, he tried to go legit. Like when he was a toddler, his family picked up sticks and jolly old, and they left England and moved to New York. Not New York City. The immigrant family settled in Jefferson County. I had to look this up. It's near a spot called Alexandria Bay, which is right there at the Canadian border.
Okay.
All right. So the settlement at the time was new. When the family showed up, the area was settled in 1817. The Bowles family shows up in 1831. So the buildings still have their first coat of paint.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, everything's going along nice. They make their way in America. And then, boom, 1849 comes along and news washes across the continent that gold has been discovered at this place called Sutter's Fort in California.
Yep.
News kicks off the gold rush of 1849, as you well know. Just 20 years old at the time, young Charlie Bowles and two of his brothers head west to go and find their fortune in the gold hills of California.
Exciting.
Now, they were about it, Elizabeth. They didn't even hesitate. They just saw the headlines and started walking west. I mean, that's how I picture it. I don't know. Anyway, they arrived in 1849. They made it.
Oh, they were
quick.
minor 49ers.
That's what I'm saying. They saw the first headline and were like, good for me. I'm going.
Yeah, they commandeered a wagon.
I assume,
what are these blue jeans we've heard about?
Yes. Who's this Levi Strauss fellow? I heard he makes a good product. Now, crossing country in 1849 was no joke.
No, not
There
at
was
all.
no transcontinental railroad at this time, but they make it out to California. I assume you're right. They took a wagon. I don't know. They ran up to gold country, staked their claim as gold miners. They mine along the North Fork of the American River, just there above Sacramento.
Yeah.
Apparently, they found jack squat.
Oh.
Because after 3 years mucking about in the cold water streams, digging in the earth, panning for gold, they came away with little to show for their efforts. So the three Bowles brothers head back to New York.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That's 1852.
Okay.
The Bowles brothers still had gold fever, though. They're like, if we could just get back to California. So they managed to get some scratch together, and the three turn right back around, and they go back to California. Yeah,
interesting.
Because the gold rush is still kicking on at this point, right? So,
the thing is everything was so expensive.
Oh, yes.
In California, it's like how now where people are, it's like a $25 sandwich. Well, that's how it was
then,
in the gold rush, is everything was outsized price-wise.
Everyone's paying for gold dust. They're like, we're paying with gold dust.
Yeah,
it's like,
so if you're going and you're not successful,
can't last
and then
long.
you're not turning around and selling shovels.
Totally. Good point.
Or doing people's laundries or making saddles.
Turning to crime.
As my people
saddle
selling
makers,
booze
right.
and making saddles.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Everybody needs a place to sit and something to drink.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like I said, crossing the continent before the Transcontinental Railroad was no joke, right? So, and I don't just mean there's a threat of dispossessed natives or the attack by horse thieves
or dysentery.
Or all the violent men rattling around in the wilds.
Hardtack.
But there's disease, illness. When the three Bowles brothers returned to gold country, Both of Charlie Bowles' brothers are severely sick from the trip.
Yeah.
Shortly thereafter, both die.
Oh, no.
And so now he's alone.
Of dysentery, just like an Oregon Trail.
Pretty much, exactly. Yep. So now he's alone in the world, young, grieving, still got gold fever.
Ugh.
So he tries to make it a go of it as a gold miner all by himself, right?
Yeah.
He stuck it out for another 2 years. Luck, still pitiful, Elizabeth.
Oh.
So he packs it back up, heads back to East, and with a head in his hands.
And that's not a short journey.
No.
Like, I get salty because it's like a 5-hour flight. You know what I mean? Like, they're just like...
Yes.
Ugh.
Weeks and weeks of travel, if not months.
That takes a lot. You got a lot of metal.
So it was good that he returned home to New York, though, because that's where he met a young woman.
Oh.
And they fell in love, Elizabeth. Her name was Mary Elizabeth Johnson, which is like the most 19th century nativist American name you could come up with. Mary Elizabeth Johnson.
Yeah, that's pretty generic.
Now, in 1854...
She would not do well in the NFL.
No, she would not. So the pair marry, right? And they decide to make a go of it. After a few years, he convinces her, we need to move west.
Yeah.
But she's like, I don't know about it. He's like, no, not all the way back to California. Don't worry about that. I've shaken the gold fever. Let's move to Decatur, Illinois.
Okay.
So they move to Decatur, Illinois. They make a life for themselves, or Charlie Bowles tries to make a life for himself. They have 4 kids. Nice family, right? Good 19th century Americans. Charlie Bowles tries his hand at farming, does some teaching. This is around 1860. Mm-hmm. And if you know American history, you know what's blowing around in the breeze, but is yet to come to bloody fruition.
The
American Civil War. The war breaks out. Charlie Bowles they're in Decatur, Illinois. He's not under threat of what's happening, but he still is like, I don't know, this is not right. Takes him a little while, but by the end of 1862, middle of 1860, I think August, he signs up to fight.
Oh.
He joins the Union.
Right.
So, like I said, the outlaw folk hero. He knows to be on the right side of the Civil War. Now, he joins Company B of the 116th Illinois Regiment, signs up to fight under General William Tecumseh Sherman. Not yet a general, but Tecumseh Sherman. He stays with this general for the duration of the war.
Oh,
he
wow.
was there, rifle in hand, for every battle Sherman fought.
Oh, wait, did he go? He did the march? Oh,
yeah, he made the march.
Hell
Elizabeth,
yeah.
he was in the big fights, the little fights. He was in 17 major Civil War battles, major ones. He was also in all the little skirmishes, but all the major ones, right?
Wow.
So his luck holds up. He's no good at gold mining, but he was a hell of a Civil War soldier.
Yeah.
He does get wounded, not once, not twice, 3 times.
Dang.
He gets seriously hit at Vicksburg, and that's like where he has to like post up like in the military hospital for a while, but he survives till the end of the war.
Wow.
And there he is, as you asked, with General Sherman when he makes his fiery march to the sea. We're burning down half of Georgia.
Yes.
Yes, Queen.
Burn it all.
June 7th, 1865. Civil War is won. The nation's stitching itself back together. No longer a young man, Charlie Bowles goes back to Illinois, back to his wife and family. Now, I don't know if the war changed. Okay, well, I do know the war, because war changes everybody. So, I mean, I know it changed him, but I don't know how it changed him. And they don't have language like PTSD back then.
Sure.
They don't even have shell shock. That's like a World War I term.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but he's walking around in Decatur, Illinois, and he cannot get back to the quiet life of farming.
Yeah.
So in 1867, he's like, I'm going west. But the gold rush at this point has passed in California, so he can't go back to the gold hills. Instead, he goes to Montana, where they've recently discovered gold, Idaho.
Yeah.
So they're finding smaller pockets here and there.
The silver.
A bunch of silver as well.
Nevada and all.
Yeah, exactly. The silver Comstock lode. And, So he starts mining for precious metals in Montana and Idaho. At this point, he's still in contact with his wife and his family, sending regular letters, sending money back home. One of his letters, dated 1877, he writes to his wife, complains that he had some real bad business with road agents from the Wells Fargo company. He did him dirty, right? So in the letter, he promises his wife that he will get his revenge against Henry Wells and William Fargo.
Uh-huh.
And Elizabeth, my man, was good to his word. To do that, though, Charlie Bowles, he picks up sticks again and he goes truly west. This time he returns to California. He's like, where are them Wells Fargo boys located? So the gold rush may be over, but there's still plenty of loose wealth rocking and rolling around the gold country in lock boxes loaded onto stagecoaches operated by who?
Wells
Fargo and Company. And that's who Charlie Bowles makes the sole target of his outlaw ways.
You're kidding.
Yep, just fixates on stagecoaches. If it's red and says in yellow Wells Fargo, he's hitting it. Unlike gold mining, when it comes to being an outlaw folk hero, Charlie Bowles is as lucky as he was in war. He finds he's good at being a bandit. In fact, he holds the record for robbed stagecoaches. As my man
Whoa.
Black Bart, he pulled off 20 more stagecoach robberies than any other highwayman in the Wild
No way.
West.
And I've not heard of this
I know.
character.
I had not heard about him either until I read about them to do this story for you.
Yeah.
He holds the record at 29 successful stagecoach robberies.
29.
Yeah, and his 30th was his fateful last ride.
Oh, honey.
But for years, Black Bart frustrated the hell out of law and all the road agents from the Wells Fargo company as he just wreaks his earthly revenge against the bankers.
Yeah.
So now that we've met our anti-hero, let's take a
Yes.
little break. And after these messages, we'll get to the criming.
Yes.
We're back, Elizabeth.
Hello.
We're ready to get to know my man, Black Bart.
Yes. Every time you say his name, I think of a Christmas Story.
Oh, right.
Where he wants the Red Ryder BB gun,
Yeah.
and it's all because I'll get you, Black Bart.
That's the thing. His name sticks around. He picks such a
Yeah.
compelling name, it becomes like this moniker for villains. And yet, as you hear, he's really not that guy, like the
Yeah.
rough, tough. Anyway, first of all, don't let his name throw you. I just want to let you know Black Bart is not a black cowboy.
Am I correct that it's Black Bart?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're totally.
He's in Looney Tunes too.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very
And-
common stand-in name
Yeah, yeah.
for like the cowboy villain.
Well, it's got great alliteration.
Totally.
And, yeah.
And it also has that dime store novel quality or dime novel quality.
Yes. I'm sorry. So continue.
That's fine. No, he's not this notorious bad man, to my point, right? Black Bart doesn't have a surly demeanor, doesn't have noxious vibes. He's not a big, gruff villain.
Yeah.
But he gives himself this nom de crime. So it was, as I said, based on his literary leanings.
Yeah.
He's a different kind of folk hero outlaw, right? He was known, like, for instance, he was known to read the Bible regularly.
Mm-hmm.
He was partial to the words of Shakespeare and would quote him. Black Bart, as I said, didn't smoke, didn't drink. He also didn't smoke opium or hashish, as the newspapers would point out. He doesn't smoke opium. I guess it was common enough. You had to point this out. So he didn't swear, and if it weren't for all the stagecoach robberies, really an exemplary life for a gold miner.
Sure. Yeah.
But as I told you up top, as Billy Bob Thornton put it in Tombstone, Black Bart was pretty brave for a man who didn't go heeled in the Old West, meaning he didn't carry shooting irons either.
Yeah.
Neither out in the open or secreted on his person.
Really?
Yeah, but Black Bart did carry a double-barrel shotgun that he sawed off, and he used that when he was working as an outlaw stagecoach bandit.
Okay.
But a lot of historians think it was never loaded. He just carried an unloaded, sawed-off shotgun.
That's just as effective
But
sometimes.
I found in interviews he said it was as an emergency precaution. He never had to use it. I don't think anybody would go out there with an unloaded weapon and being like, I'm going to point this at somebody who may have a loaded weapon.
Exactly.
See how this plays out.
Well, because when you start to draw it out from something, if he's pulling it from under a jacket, that's when you get shot.
Yeah.
Before you even have it fully.
Exactly. It's a gun. It's a gun. Like, if someone else sees it, they're going to be like,
they're all gun. Stop resisting.
In his record 29 stagecoach robberies, as I said, not once does he ever fire his double-barrel sawed-off shotgun. The street sweeper's there for show. But the stagecoach drivers are known. This is where we get the term shotgun. They have a guy riding next to him who carries a shotgun.
Yeah.
Like, that's the shotgun seat. So he's going mano a mano with them in terms of like, I've got what they've got.
Yeah.
Now, when he would rob a stagecoach, he never bothered the passengers because he was known to be kind to the ladies. He would use his best manners. He would always say, ma'am, please, and thank you. And he'd let them know. And he was also that he wasn't going to hurt anybody. And he was also very compliant with stagecoach drivers about like, let me hold your horses. You get down. Seriously, he was just like incredibly considerate. And I mentioned in my intro, but by far this is my favorite detail, is that he's terrified of horses. So he's an outlaw who does not ride a horse, cannot escape on a horse. He robs a stagecoach and then just walks away into the woods.
Don't mind
just
me.
trying to picture that.
He's like Homer Simpson drifting back into the bushes.
Exactly. Just put into like Valley Oaks. So at this point, for his outlaw look, he was also partial to long dusters, like those coats, if you know, like they're made interestingly for riding horses to protect you from like the cholla and the cactus, and they're supposed to cover your legs. I guess he just liked the look. So he would wear those. He also liked a bowler. He was a bowler man. Like, I don't mean a
Okay.
professional bowler. I mean like
Yeah,
a
the
hat.
hat,
The rounded
yeah.
top hats. So when he was not working, when he's not doing his outlaw business, he would it was common to have a bowler. Sometimes he would have like a gold tipped cane.
Oh,
Stylish, rakish gentleman.
nice.
Right? But when he was working as an outlaw, he'd pull a flour sack over his head, cut out 2 eye holes, and then he was like basically some
like the
old West
Zodiac.
Scooby-Doo's villain or the Zodiac. Yeah, right? It was quite the look. It was shocking for people then as it would be now. Now, but Elizabeth, I'd like to take you back to the 1870s to Northern California, to the gold country.
Yes, please.
And to get to robbing stagecoaches. But first, I think we need to discuss one last thing, which is stagecoaches themselves.
Yeah.
I feel like you need to know a little bit more about the Black Bart's targets.
Yeah.
Do you know much about stagecoaches?
I mean, I'm not an expert or anything. I've seen one of the original Wells Fargo ones. They have like it's been refurbished.
Totally.
At the big Wells Fargo
San Francisco.
downtown San Francisco in
Totally.
the financial district. But yeah, so that you can like see it through a window, but you can also go inside and look. And
Feel like rocks and...
yeah, I don't think I've ever been in it, but like it's not huge.
No.
Yeah.
Those are the more common ones. Those are a little bit smaller than what I'm describing, which is for the luxury line of stagecoaches, it was something called the Concorde.
Okay.
And the stagecoach, that one could hold 9 people inside the coach.
Oh, wow.
It was much bigger than like the ones you used to probably fit like 6, maybe
Yeah,
8
yeah.
comfortably. Now, the driver would sit up front, and then there would be a seat next to the driver. That's where the man would the shotgun, right?
Yeah.
So then also there's roughly a dozen seats. They're called the Dickey seats that were located on top of the coach. You could just ride in the free air up there with the luggage, where the brass rail
Like
is
a
around
train
the top.
in India.
Exactly like a train in India. So that's how people would ride. They're called Dickey seats, and they'd have no shielding from the dust, the
Interesting.
wind, the weather, anything. But the seats were cheap, I guess.
Yeah.
And they'd be up there with the leather mailbags, right? So beneath the
But the views.
oh god, and
But then, like, so you go through the
360.
woods and the pine branches
get
hit you in
knocked
the
off
face.
by a low branch. So also, I forgot to tell you, there's the beneath the mule skinner seats. That's the wagon driver's name, right?
Yeah.
There's something called the lock box, or the AKA the treasure box. And
Yeah.
this is where Wells Fargo would put their gold coin, the bullion, the gold dust collected from the hills, and all their precious metals, right? But also stocks, bonds, treasury bills, you name it. They're all there in the lock box. This whole rig gets pulled by a team of usually 4 to 6 horses. And to keep these animals from tiring out and pulling over all this weight over hill and dale and mountain path and valley floor, the horses would travel about 10 miles and then they would be changed out. So
Yeah.
this ride is stopping every 10 miles.
Yeah.
And then changing out all of the horses, which takes a time, and they're feeding them and everything.
Sure.
And that's why it's called a stagecoach. It goes in stages.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, there you go. So when the horses get uncoupled from the stagecoach and the new team horses get strapped in every 10 miles or so, this makes them vulnerable to banditry.
Yeah.
But that's also where they are at like some way station. There's people there. It's not an easy
Sure.
target. Only the craziest bandits would hit people there.
Yeah.
This is what you see in a lot of Westerns. It's just like, oh, this man's deranged. He's hitting the way station.
Yeah.
Most reasonable bandits would just wait for them to get 2 miles down the road between
Right,
way
where there's
sta-
no one else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then just hit them. And so then to do that, though, you got to stop the wagon. And these guys
Right.
are cooking along, right? So how do you do that? Well, with this old Civil War veteran with his combat experience under General Sherman, he's done a bunch of raids and he's dealt with wagons. He figured out, I can do, in my one-man war against Wells Fargo, I know I can do this. So he makes himself a name people can fear, Black Bart, and then he just is willing to step out in front of the wagon with this crazy look.
Yeah.
The flour sack over his head and the double-barreled sawed-off shotgun aimed at the driver. And the
Terrifying.
driver, yeah, driver's like, this guy means business. And so
Yeah.
then they yell, whoa, and pull over. So you may be wondering, where did he come up with the name Black Bart? It's a stroke of genius,
That's a
but
very
where?
Black Bay Area rapid transit. That's a very difficult. That's a strange name. Where did he get it?
His nom de crime comes from his love of poetry and literary pursuits, right? There was this story that ran in the old Sacramento Union newspaper a couple years prior. It was called The Case of Summerfield, written by Caxton, which is meant to be like a Roman, like, oh, this is my writing eponym, right? Or a pseudonym.
Yeah.
The author's real name was William Henry Rhodes. He was a lawyer and he wrote a lot of stories, right? So this was fictional early sci-fi tale about this chemical, like a recipe that this guy has in these secret vials that will turn water into something that will burn, that'll catch fire. And this is a secret. It's happening in the Old West. And people are fighting over these vials. So imagine like the show, The Wild West, where they have like some crazy inventor and they have to get chased down by Jim West.
Yeah.
Right. That's basically what it is, right? But in that story, you got a bad man named Black Bart, and he robs Wells Fargo stagecoaches as part of a campaign of fear and terror against the bankers. And he's the one who covets this secret that can destroy the world, right? So Black Bart is described as having like wild gray eyes, a bushy black beard, scraggly wind-kept hair. And this becomes the inspiration for this folk hero outlaw character he plans to build. In reality, Charles Bowles is like 5'8". He's well built, well proportioned, right? All the newspapers of the day point out, but he's not this big, terrifying figure, right? Yeah. But his name sounds like it.
Yeah.
So the Los Angeles Evening Express, they described the bandit Black Bart back in 1888 as, quote, Charles E. Bowles, better known as Black Bart, a name which he himself assumed, is the most romantic figure in the history of American crime. The lone highwayman who spares life and takes only from the rich is the one criminal tolerated by fiction. Yet fiction has never portrayed a character where craftiness, cunning, and intelligence are so strongly blended with purposeless criminality, gentleness, and courtesy with desperate courage, as in the nature of one Black Bart.
Oh.
Right? So at this point, he's 46 years old when he's doing all this.
Okay.
He's in his 40s. When he gets caught, he's 48, but when they're writing about him, he's about 46. So when he decides to become Black Bart, he's a 40-year-old former veteran of the Civil War who's like walked away from his family and former gold miner, and he's just like, I'm going to become this literary figure.
He has seen some of the worst things
the worst carnage ever.
Yeah, absolute carnage.
For years.
Yeah.
So in the summer of 1875, July to be exact, for his first stagecoach robbery, Black Bart opts to hit a Wells Fargo stagecoach running between Sonora in Tuolumne County and Milton in Calaveras County.
Yeah.
So up there in the true gold country, like Mark Twain, the jumping frogs.
So he's going from Sonora up to...
They're going from Sonora up to Milton in Calaveras County.
Okay, yeah. So they're just running the length of the foothills.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So Calaveras County, as I said, jumping frog contest,
Yes.
Mark Twain, this is real Gold Hill country. Now, just outside of a town called Copperopolis in Calaveras County, right, our newly minted outlaw sets his trap. Now, after the fact, the stagecoach driver said that the outlaw stepped out of the woods in front of the stagecoach. He wore the flour sack over his head with the customary 2 eye holes cut out. He levels his double-barrel shotgun at the driver and says, "Throw down your box." Now, this means the strong box, aka the treasure box. Stagecoach driver considers his options, right? So the outlaw clocks his hesitation. So Black Bart gives orders to his fellow bad men secreted away in the woods. He goes, "If he dares to shoot, give him a solid volley, boys." The stagecoach driver looks up, gazes into the woods, right? And he spies rifles amongst the trees, all pointing back at him. He's now scared for his life. There's too many of them. Stagecoach driver throws down the lockbox. He watches as this outlaw pries it open with like an axe, a small little like hatchet.
Yeah.
He collects the $160 inside, which would be about $5,500 today.
Yeah.
The outlaw stands back off and he moseys into the woods, right? Just backs up, protected by other rifles aimed at the stagecoach. Now, once he's satisfied that the highwayman is good and gone, the stagecoach driver hops down to retrieve the lockbox. He's got to go and show his bosses that, look, it's not me.
Yeah.
And then that's when he sees what he believed were rifles aimed at him were nothing more than carefully positioned sticks just wedged into the tree branches. There were no other bandits. It was just some theater in service of crime.
Sure.
So
but who would imagine it's just one dude and no horse?
Exactly.
So you're thinking like, oh my gosh, there's like...
He's got to have a great gang.
A big group of guys and they have a bunch of horses just on the other side of this patch of... Yeah, oh boy.
So that's his first robbery.
This is first one.
Boom. He's like, I'm good at this. So by the end of the year, he's back at it. This time he's near Marysville, up in Yuba County.
Yeah.
North of my hometown, your alma mater, Davis.
Yep.
It's December of 1875. Again, Black Bart uses the same gag. He props up sticks in the woods, steps out in front of the stagecoach, acts like he got a team of bandits, guns trained on the driver. Again, his theater in the wild, totally successful. Guess he got a good haul because he takes a year off from banditry after this point.
Oh.
He's down in San Francisco enjoying the sporting life as a professional gambler.
Okay.
So eventually his luck ran out, so he hops on a ferry, goes and crosses the bay. He didn't go back up to Gold Country, though. He decided, I'm going to score some more loot. He stays closer to the Bay Area. He goes up and robs a stagecoach in Mendocino County.
Oh, up the coast.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So he decides his third robbery goes down August 3rd, 1877. As the stagecoach thunders down the road, suddenly out of the woods steps this hooded figure. It's Black Bart with the same flour sack over his head, 2 eye holes cut out. He holds up his sawed-off shotgun. Stagecoach driver sees him, yells, "Whoa!" Horses come to a stop, right? Now, the outlaw orders the driver, "Throw down the box," which the duly complies. Again, Black Bart pretends he's got a gang outlaws in the trees, right? And it works just as well the third time. But I guess word had not spread amongst the drivers. There's this guy out there pretending that there's these sticks in the woods are his gang. So
he spends hours finding like really straight sticks.
Yeah.
So that it's and like
carving
probably,
an opening in the old
and then pulling all the bark off so it looks smooth.
So Black Bart, he seems to know something which is key, which is that people are more afraid of their imaginations than reality.
Yes.
So just work on their imagination. You don't need to actually do anything scary. Just make them start thinking scary things.
I'm sure that he saw that in warfare. That,
exactly.
You know, that people, you can either psych yourself out imagining what could happen, and then you become more of a victim walking into a situation.
Or you psych yourself up. I'm gonna live through this, and then we're gonna use these waving sticks to indicate that we have a lot more soldiers on this side of the fence.
And I'm not gonna be freaked out until I know for sure what's going on.
Yes, good point.
You know.
So at this point, third robbery, he pries open the lockbox, steals the contents. Black Bart tells the driver, "Drive on," right? And driver is happily to do this. He's like, "Okay, yeah."
Don't ask me twice.
He takes off, right? Then when he gets to the next way station, he reports to the authorities that he was robbed and look at the lockbox. And they ride out to the scene of the crime, and all they find there is just evidence of the robbery. They're like, "Oh, this is where it happened." They find, different, with the hatchet he used to break open the lockbox, but they also find a stanza of poetry.
Oh.
And it reads, and I quote, "I've labored long and hard for bread, for honor and for riches. But on my corns too long you've tread, you fine-haired sons of bitches." Signed, Black Bart.
Oh my God.
Now, you better believe that poem was not balled up and left on the forest floor. No, the lawmen were amused. The poem gets shared with newspaper men. They put it in their papers. Soon enough, thanks to the telegraph and the early wire service, this newspaper readers from coast to coast are reading about Black Bart, the outlaw poet who's robbing stagecoaches in California.
It's great. That's clickbait, Zaron.
Exactly. And he's an instant sensation of the 19th century. For his fifth robbery, the next year in 1878, Black Bart hits a stagecoach between Quincy up in Plumas County.
Yes.
And it was on the run down to Oroville in Butte County.
Right.
It was the summer again, July to be exact. Apparently, Black Bart was in the mood for a little more poetry. After he successfully robbed that stagecoach, emptied his lockbox, went on his merry way, Black Bart left behind another outlaw poem.
I love it.
His second poem went, and I quote, "Here I lay me down to sleep and wait the coming morrow. Perhaps success, perhaps defeat, and everlasting sorrow. But let come what will, I'll try it on. My condition can't be worse. And if there's money in that box, 'tis money in my purse." Signed, Black Bart. So that little verse sealed the deal for Black Bart.
Oh,
the people from coast to coast now love him and his folk hero outlaw antics, right? But the authorities and the lawmen hate how silly he's making them look.
Yeah.
But however, try as they might, the law cannot catch this new outlaw sensation. Black Bart just keeps right on robbing stagecoaches, just willy-nilly, right? It seems that he's well aware of the local economic cycles of the area, right? Because he takes advantage of them. For instance, he knows that in Mendocino County, there's sheep shearing season.
Yes.
Which means that the shepherds and the wool gatherers are going to need to get paid. Which means the stagecoaches are going to be running big loads of cash to settle up at the end of sheep shearing season.
Yeah.
Which meant it was going to be a big payday for Black Bart. Now, October 1878, in sheep shearing season, Black Bart robbed 2 Wells Fargo stagecoaches on back-to-back days.
Oh, they don't expect that. They think it'll be a while.
Totally. And he's you'll love this. He's super casual about it. On the first day, October 2nd, 1878, Black Bart gets spotted having a picnic by himself near Ukiah. Right? Just having a picnic. Now, yes, he was enjoying the spoils of his crime. The stagecoach draws near, and Black Bart hops up out of his ambush spot, levels his sawed-off shotgun, right? Driver pulls the horses to a stop. Black Bart tosses the apple that he was still munching on and gets down to his outlaw business, right? These are all from the eyewitness descriptions. And the next day, October 3rd, 1878, back at it, he hits another stagecoach. This time, again, as always, he flees on foot. And what does he do? He just walks over to a farmhouse a couple miles away, and he pays the family for dinner, and then he sits down and has dinner with them while everyone's out looking for him.
Yeah, because, no
one would go to a family farmhouse. So he buys himself some time. But the young daughter there, she's the first person person to take an interest in him, and she sees him without his flour sack mask on.
Sure.
And no one else has
He
seen that.
didn't eat dinner in it.
No, exactly. So he doesn't rob the family either.
Right.
But they figured out who he was. So this daughter, one Donna McCreary, said Black Bart had, quote, graying brown hair, missing 2 of his front teeth, deep-set piercing blue eyes under heavy eyebrows, slender hands, and intellectual in conversation, well-flavored with polite jokes.
Okay.
So by this point, Black Bart is becoming so famous, so well known, Wells Fargo has to hire professional trackers to hunt down this outlaw. They go like full on Sundance and Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid, right?
Yeah.
They're like, let's hire the best people.
Yeah.
So these guys, these professional trackers, they follow the trail of Black Bart to the McCreary farm. And then that's how they get the news for the daughter. But it's too late when they arrive there. The manhunters, they continue to follow Black Bart's trail for 60 miles. The trackers are on horseback. Black Bart's on foot. Somewhere around the Eel River, the trail goes cold. His trick is, during the night, Black Bart keeps hiking through the rough country. And by morning, he's 20 miles east of his pursuers. So they're camping down. He's gone.
Yeah.
So free from his professional trackers, the next day, Black Bart strikes again. He hits a junction of 2
No
wagon
way.
roads in Lake County. According to reports of the day, Black Bart was whiling away his time, waiting for the stagecoach, but, quote, by eating peaches, the pits of which were found at the tree from which he stepped behind.
Oh my gosh.
So that's his move. Just eat some fruit, wait for some money to come down the road.
Yeah.
Unbeknownst to Black Bart, a second professional tracker hired by Wells Fargo is still on his trail. He rides up on horseback, but he's a day late. He arrives at the scene of the crime, only there's no poem waiting for him this time, just the peach pits. Meanwhile, Black Bart is hiked into the Valley Oaks, and 48 hours later, he's 70 miles away in Colusa County.
Whoa.
On foot.
On foot.
Yeah, from that point, over the next few years, Black Bart continues to wreak havoc with his one-man campaign of vengeance against Wells Fargo. They cannot catch him. He just continues robbing stagecoaches, one after another, just like potato chips, basically.
Can't stop.
Obviously, as though his luck can't last
His
forever.
cardio is amazing.
Incredible. His core strength. Yeah. Eventually, even as successful as he was, Black Bart was bound to get caught.
Yeah.
When we get back from these warm, delicious, fresh out of the oven commercials, Elizabeth, I'll tell you how my man Black Bart gets popped.
Yes.
Elizabeth.
Zaron.
We're back.
Hi.
You ready to hear more from my man Black Bart?
Yes.
The folk hero outlaw poet?
Yes.
Thanks to his poetry and his success as a bandit, Black Bart's fame is at this point secured, right? Everyone's talking about him coast to coast.
Did anyone set his poems to music?
Not that I found.
And
That's an interesting question.
Sing him in saloons and stuff?
Hold that thought about singing his poetry.
Okay.
So his success guarantees, though, as I said, he's staying in the headlines. People are loving this. And I'm talking for years.
Yeah.
For years, there are reports of this guy just going around the Old West, robbing stagecoaches, wreaking havoc on Wells Fargo.
Living his best life.
He's driving Wells Fargo nuts.
Yeah.
And they have the money to see this as a war. And so they're like, we're going to win this war. So let's go over a few of his stagecoach robbery highlights before I tell you how it all goes pop, because they'll kind of set up how he also gets caught.
Yeah.
On October 8th, 1881, Black Bart is in Shasta County up north.
Yeah.
And he's waiting to ambush the stagecoach between Wairika and Redding.
Okay.
And when he pops up out from his ambush spot, the stagecoach driver pulls hard on the brakes, yells, whoa, to the team of horses, right? They pull over. This driver is named Horace Williams. He's apparently not terribly afraid of Black Bart because Horace Williams decides to strike up a conversation. After he throws down the strong box and Black Bart pries it open with his hatchet, he's scouring through the contents. The curious driver, Horace Williams, wonders how much Black Bart is peeling off his bosses, the fat cats in Wells Fargo. So he asks, hey, how much did you make? And Black Bart, genial, good-hearted as he is, he's like, not very much for the chances I take.
Oh.
So it's like, yeah, exactly. Anyway, at this point, it's 1881. So now, how many trackers and professional manhunters do Wells Fargo have there on the roads and in the wilderness tracking down Black Bart? Great question, Elizabeth.
I am so good at asking these questions.
The answer is they had teams. Teams, Elizabeth.
Teams plural.
Of professional manhunters. But these guys cannot catch Black Bart. for years.
It's
embarrassing. And mostly Black Bart is embarrassing because he doesn't ride a horse and they don't figure this
Yeah.
out. These professional manhunters are so used to tracking a man on horseback or by wagon wheel, they cannot get it through their heads that he's just walking away.
Yeah.
So on October 11th, 1881, he strikes again. Professional manhunters rush to the scene because every time they hear about it, they get a telegraph announcement and then they go rushing there.
Yeah.
They track the trail that they find and they find, once again, Jack Squat. This is just driving them. These are some of the most famous detectives in the country being sent over from across the country. And December of the same year, Black Bart strikes again in Marysville.
You know Marysville today is like overrun with wild chickens?
Yes, yeah. Totally.
Anyway, fun fact.
He gets away on foot, right? There's now a whole posse because the Marysville sheriff don't play.
Yeah.
So he gets a whole posse chasing after him. And the Fat Cat bankers have their manhunters and they're all out there. This outlaw folk hero poets embarrassing them all in the national newspapers. And at this point, right, as I said, gleeful copy. The newspapers here, for instance, the Tennessean, right? A newspaper in Tennessee, they have a story of Black Bart's outlaw exploits and narrow escapes, and they chronicle him like he's the Robin Hood of the Wild West, right? And I quote, all his operations were in wild country, where escape was easy and no trail could be followed. The counties of Sonoma, Mendocino, Trinity, Siskiyou, Shasta, Plumas, Butte, Yuba, Calaveras, and Placer, nearly all old mining country, were the scenes of his exploits. The best of detectives and sheriffs were trying for years to secure some clue, but the simplicity of a system baffled them.
Wow.
Right? So in January of 1882, Black Bart returns to Mendocino County. He plans to catch the stage running between Cloverdale and Ukiah up to north.
Yeah.
Right? He meets up with the stagecoach near a town called Hopland.
I know.
Hopland,
they
right?
used to have a really good music festival.
Yeah,
there.
Hopland. Yeah, totally. So the stagecoach driver is named Harry Force.
Okay.
I got to say, I'm wondering why this man did not change his name. You're a stagecoach driver named Harry Force. Harry Force.
Harry Force.
So
That's great. Of course, he's one big Harry Force. Get out of his way.
So old Harry Force.
I love that they're acknowledging it's the simplicity of it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's true.
That's the, wanting. It's not like they're looking back on that. They're saying he's doing this so simply, and they
can't figure it out.
Ding dongs can't. Yeah.
And they have all these eyewitness reports of him just walking away into the woods.
Yeah.
They just keep thinking he's going to, somebody picks him up and they ride
figure
away.
They must have horses hidden somewhere because who in their right mind would
walking
everywhere?
Across California.
But walking is superior.
It is true. So at this point, Harry Force is holding the reins and he has no one riding shotgun. He's by himself. Stagecoach is empty too.
Okay.
The man who intends him to rob him doesn't know that it's empty. So Black Bart steps out from behind a valley oak. The wagon driver, Harry Force, sees him and he sees the white flour sack on his head, the 2 eye holes cut out, wearing the long duster coat. And then he's like, whoa, especially when he sees that double barrel shotgun. So Black Bart introduces himself. I'm Black Bart. And he's like, throw down the box. So Black Bart holds the team of horses with his shotgun trained on Harry Horse.
He's like, I will hold your horses.
And so Harry Force throws down the strong box, right? And then Black Bart tells Harry Force, go on, get it. And he's once again only too happy to oblige. And after he's ridden a little distance, he comes to a toll house because this road has a toll house. You have to pay every few miles to be on this road. I don't know how you can just ride off the road and go around the toll house. Yeah. But I guess with a wagon that's difficult.
Well, I mean, when you think of the terrain up there,
I'm sure
it's not like
impossible.
They've carved these, I'm sure that it's like modified,
it's through boulder passes,
animal passages that were then used by indigenous folks who then, it's like they drive cattle and stuff through these regions.
There's a reason why this is the only road people are using.
Exactly.
Yeah, so at this point, once he gets to the toll house, they tell the authorities, the telegraph now wires light up, word spreads, Wells Fargo detectives, they hear the report, they go off in hot pursuit. They meet up with the sheriff's posse at the crime scene 1 hour after it occurs.
An hour? I was like, like next week.
No, that's how quick they're responding.
Wow.
Yeah. Strongbox is still there on the ground. Slit mail bags are there, but no Black Bart. This trail leads off between the oak trees. The posse and the Wells Fargo detectives, they chase after Black Bart on their thundering horses. They follow the trail all the way to Kelseyville near Clear Lake.
Yes.
And that's where the trail goes cold. Once again, Black Bart slips away from the Wells Fargo manhunters.
Wow.
In June of 1882, he robs another stagecoach near Willits, California. In Mendocino, California. So about 5 miles south of Ukiah, a hooded figure steps out of the wagon road. Stagecoach driver yells, whoa, hits the brakes, pulls the wagon to a stop. The driver is named Tom Force. Yeah, that's right.
What?
Brother of Harry Force.
What, the Force brothers?
Yes, they're stagecoach drivers. So Black Bart's final stagecoach robbery comes 1 year later, November 1883. If you can believe it, he robs the stagecoach in the exact same spot where he robbed his first stagecoach.
Oh,
he
full
begins and
circle.
ends at the same spot, just outside of Copperopolis,
Caparopolis.
at a place called Funk Hill.
Funk Hill?
That's where he gets popped, in Funk Hill. So there's this boulder there balanced high above the wagon road. It's this perfect ambush spot, and that's why Black Bart returns to this spot. So fateful day is November 3rd. He's waiting at the boulder at the bend in the wagon road, eager for his next ambush robbery.
Yeah.
He pulls on his white flour sack with his 2 cut-out eye holes. But rather than me tell you about this one, Elizabeth, I'd like you to close your eyes.
But as it closed.
I'd like you to picture it. It's Saturday, November 3rd, 1883, and you, Elizabeth, are riding along the wagon road from Sonora to Milton. Near the town of Copperopolis, the mule skinner has kept good time. When he stops the wagon, he's been efficient and even considerate of you, the sole passenger. You've just used the Reynolds ferry to cross a river. That was wild. And you did meet the son of the ferryman, a 19-year-old named Jim Rolleri. But now the wagon rolls through a grove of sun-dappled oak trees that line the wagon road. You gaze out at the oak trees in the California hills, still gold from summer, not yet greened over again by the winter rains. That's when you hear the wagon driver yell, "Whoa!" That seems odd. It's too early for a stop to change horses. There must be something in the road. You stick your head out of the window to see what's in the road, and there you spy a hooded figure. Is he wearing a flour sack on his head? You think to yourself. The sawed-off shotgun tells you why he's there. The outlaw steps forward toward the now stopped wagon. You fear what awaits you. You've heard about how these raids and burglaries and robberies go down in the Wild West. But he doesn't come up to your stagecoach door and yank it open. Instead, the man with the flour sack over his head politely says, "Ma'am, if you be so kind as to wait inside the coach, I won't be more than a minute. I intend to here rob this stagecoach, but take nothing from you." You are struck by his candor. You nod mutely, still somewhat scared. You watch as he orders the driver to throw down the box. He does. It lands with the sort of sound that promises gold coins are inside. The bad man outlaw uses a small axe to break open the locked box. He finds a fabulous wealth of gold waiting inside. Your eyes light up at the sight. He scoops up the gold, shoves it into a sack. He hefts the sack over his shoulder and walks off toward the surrounding woods. And that's when you hear it. A gunshot from a rifle. And then another. And then there's a pause. Then another gunshot sounds. You see the outlaw go down. It seems a third shot hit him. A fourth gunshot sounds. When the gun smoke clears, you see the outlaw is gone. Now, standing by the wagon is the son of the ferryman. It seems the boy saw the outlaw waiting to ambush the wagon, and he snuck back around, and when he saw he had a moment, he grabbed a rifle from the wagon driver and took aim at the outlaw. You certainly saw the outlaw stumble, as if he were hit, but now he's gone. The wagon driver hops down. He and the ferryman's son check the woods. All they find is evidence the outlaw was indeed shot. There's a pool of his blood. The trail leads off into the woods. The pair also find a shirt cuff, knocked off apparently by the gunshot, and a white silk crepe handkerchief. Although you can't see him, Black Bart has yet again escaped on foot. Even though he was shot, the bullet passed through his hand. It's far from a mortal wound. And he's able to flee. That dropped silk handkerchief will spell his doom.
Oh, no.
Yes. Well, Elizabeth, unbeknownst to you, Black Bart takes his sawed-off shotgun, his stolen fortune, secrets them away on a hollow log. Then he heads for civilization. He tries to go and blend in and disappear in the streets of San Francisco. The stagecoach driver who was robbed that fateful November day, he wrote a memoir 20 years later about how the day he was robbed by Black Bart. In the manuscript, he claims that he fired all 4 shots and that the ferryman's son, Rolleri, never fired a single shot. Guess he wanted all the credit for himself. He said that his first shot missed. However, he was fairly certain that the second or maybe his third shot hit his target. In the contemporaneous reports, he said he fired the first 2 shots and Rolleri, the boy, took the gun and fired the third and fourth shot.
I think Rolleri did them all. This guy was like quaking in his boots. And then the young upstart came.
Exactly. So that would mean if he was right, that if 2 of his shots hit, they would have hit this exact same bullet hole because he only had 1 gunshot.
Yeah.
Anyway, as a result of being hit, Black Bart dropped that white silk crepe handkerchief, and importantly, it had a laundry mark on it that read FK07. That handkerchief was then handed over to one of the Wells Fargo detectives, James Hume. This is their first good clue they've ever had in years.
Yeah.
So Hume and his fellow manhunters, Detective Harry Morse, they ride into San Francisco and they figure that's where Black Bart probably used a Chinese laundry.
Yeah.
They go to every single laundry in San Francisco. If you were wondering how many that is, Elizabeth, at the time there were roughly 91 laundries
91
in San Francisco. Yes.
There's not that today.
No, not at all. So the professional Old West manhunters, they go and they visit every single 91. Right? Finally, they discover a laundry called Ferguson and Biggs California Laundry, located at 316 Bush Street.
Okay.
The laundry lady, Mrs. Ware, tells them that the man who owns that handkerchief was just at the laundry just the day before, and he's expected to be back soon to pick up his laundry. This is how they learn the name of their prey.
Yeah.
She says his name is Charlie Bolton, and that he stays at a boarding house here in the city, not too far away. She gives them the address. The manhunters go over to the boarding house. They stake out the building. The lawmen and the Wells Fargo detectives, working together, wait for their prey to return home.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Detective Morse goes back to the laundry to wait for Black Bart there in case he goes to pick his stuff up. And wouldn't you know it, Elizabeth, guess who comes walking up? According to the San Francisco Examiner, November 19th, 1883 edition, the laundry lady said, "Why, here comes Mr. Bolton now. I'll just introduce you to him."
Oh, I love it.
For the first time ever, the manhunters who've tracked him for years, they finally see him for the first time. They lay eyes on him. Black Bart in San Francisco. At this point, it's about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. They go and they just rush over, confront him. Black Bart knows he's caught. And he's like, this is the end of my run as an outlaw.
No, you have to be like, you found my handkerchief. It got stolen.
Yeah, he gets done in by a laundry mark. So according to those who knew him, Charlie Bowles had passed himself off as a man of adventure, a former gold miner who turned mining consultant / mining engineer. His cover story neatly covers why he's always taking trips up to gold country and coming back with flush with cash, ready to live more of that good life. Now, according to the 1888 edition of the Los Angeles Express, Detective Morse described Black Bart as how he dressed and, quote, elegantly but not fleshily. Now, the same paper goes on to say that Black Bart also, quote, carried a gold-mounted cane and wore a derby hat. He talked freely about valuable mining interests and seemed for once to have lost all his shrewdness as he walked down Sansom Street, arm in arm with Detective Morse, and upstairs into the Wells Fargo building and into the office of Detective Hume. So they don't take him to the police. They take him to Wells Fargo.
Yeah.
So the two Wells Fargo men,
ultimate,
right?
Then.
They berate him in the hidden away in the Wells Fargo office for hours. They throw down evidence they've collected over the years. Black Bart says nothing, won't confess to anything. So the Wells Fargo manhunters, they go, fine, we're going to turn you over to the real police.
Yeah.
So they take him up to Calaveras County, and there in Gold Country, that's where he was arrested on an old warrant. And Black Bart gets locked up in the Calaveras County jail. The Wells Fargo men then sit there and plead with him for 5 hours now that he's behind bars. He still won't talk to him.
Really?
Then Sheriff, this guy, Captain Stone, comes in. He lays out all the evidence he's collected over the years. Black Bart looks up, says, "Can you prove all that?" Sheriff Captain Stone says, "I can." And Black Bart says, "All right, let's travel." So then he leads the Wells Fargo men and the sheriff of Calaveras County on a 24-mile ride on horseback. It's one of the few times he ever rides one of the terrifying animals.
Yeah.
And according to the Los Angeles Express, quote, despite the severeness of the journey and the discovery of his guilt, Black Bart laughed and talked as he rode. He kept his companions in continual merriment by his bright flashes of wit. He narrated many of his adventures in the surrounding wilderness, and his voice echoed in the canyons as he would break forth in song.
Whoa, he's singing as he goes.
Yeah, he's like the literal medieval troubadour singing his own outlaw folk hero song to the men he's frustrated for years.
Oh, that's so good.
What outlaw brio,
that's
right?
So good.
So when they arrive at the crime scene, under the moonlight, Black Bart shows the lawmen and the Wells Fargo manhunters where the 5,000 or so in gold he hid in the hollow log, and there's his trusty sawed-off shotgun. And they're like, all right. So then they take him back to San Francisco. He's tried, convicted, sentenced to 6 years in San Quentin. They had San Quentin at the time. The light sentence is credited to his gentlemanly ways with his victims, his kindness to ladies, his total lack of violence, and the fact that he didn't smoke, drink, cuss, or do opium. And also that he worked alone, so he had no Confederates to throw the book at. Then the news of Black Bart's arrest is breathlessly reported from coast to coast. The newspapers are alight with press coverage. After his arrest, Black Bart even wrote a letter to the wagon driver, the last one, the ones who he thought had fired the shots at him. According to the Los Angeles Express, Black Bart wrote, and I quote, stated that he remembered him with nothing but the most kindly feelings. He complimented him on his fine qualities as a driver and was only sorry that he could not be equally complimentary in speaking of his marksmanship. On concluding, he wished him an unmolested, prosperous, and happy drive through life. He reassured the anxious wife of the driver that her husband had nothing to fear from the terrible Black Bart.
This is so good.
So there's a promised $18,000 reward for the capture of the infamous Black Bart.
Yeah.
Put up by Wells Fargo, the state of California, and the federal government. They all put up this money.
Yeah.
The wagon driver, how much do you think he received of this reward, Elizabeth?
$0.
$600.
Oh.
Of the promised $18,000. $300 from Wells Fargo, $300 from the state of California. Federal government was like, what reward?
Yeah.
I'm busy. I can't hear you. I'm in beep. Oh, yeah, click. So telegraph's wires broke. There remains one question. Why did Charlie Bowles become Black Bart? Right? I told you he wanted his revenge. Well, in court, when asked this very question, he told the prosecutor, quote, "I've had a rough life of it. It is an uncommon circumstance which brings me to this condition. An uncommon and mysterious one. One which no man living, except myself, knows, and no man shall ever know." So he won't tell him.
Big mystery.
Charlie Bowles also added that, "I would rather go to San Quentin for life than take a dime from a passenger or to injure him in any other way. One can rob men at any place. I never harmed a single individual and never committed any crimes except against Wells Fargo and Company." He also said to the newspaper men after his conviction, "If it had not been for that handkerchief, I'll bet $1,000 they would have never got me. $1,000, I say. But that's just the way of speaking. You know, I have no money now. I never was much troubled with riches, and on the other hand, I never was absolutely needy." So Black Bart serves his time at San Quentin, gets released early for good behavior.
Yeah.
And then, by hook or by crook, with Black Bart back outside on November 14th, 1888, a Wells Fargo stagecoach is hit by a masked bandit. Not only that, the robber left behind a verse of poetry. The poem read, "So here I've stood while wind and rain have set the trees a-sobbing and risked my life for that box that wasn't worth the robbing."
Oh my God.
So was this evidence that my man Black Bart was back at it? The famous detective who'd helped catch him, James Hume, was brought in to investigate. He's shown the tattered piece of poetry left at the crime scene. This grizzled old manhunter, right? He reads the verse carefully, like an English professor, I imagine, right? He's doing like literary metas.
Close reading,
yeah, meter and rhyme. He's determining from textual analysis that, this is not the work of Black Bart. It's a copycat. So he determines that. In the end, Black Bart spent his final days in a town near my hometown, the beautiful town of Marysville that we talked about with the loose chickens.
Yes.
A town he often haunted back when he hit stagecoach as an outlaw. And there, in Marysville, he settles down and becomes a beloved pharmacist.
Wow.
When he died, he was in Knight's Landing, which is literally down the road from Davis.
Yes.
We used to go to Knight's Landing to go fishing, like all the time. That's allegedly where he is buried in an unmarked grave. I cannot believe I've never heard of this man before now.
I like any excuse to head up that way. Let's go look for it.
And thus ends the story of Charlie Bowles, a.k.a. Charlie Bolton, a.k.a. Black Bart.
That's
the
amazing.
outlaw folk hero, stagecoach, robber, poet.
That's incredible.
What's our ridiculous takeaway here, Elizabeth?
I think that, anytime that you can have a folk hero, like a Luigi-esque folk hero, but who's nonviolent and who has an artistic flair to it, thank you. That was a treat.
Did you enjoy that? Okay,
yes.
Good. Now
what about you?
Thank you for asking, Elizabeth.
Takeaway?
Whoa, yeah, I have one.
Want to share that?
This is how I would get caught. I could be successful outlaw for years, but I get caught because of my commitment to going to the same laundry lady. You know what I mean? And she'd have no idea I was an outlaw because I've been lying to her for
you've been
years.
so nice.
And she believes me, and I'm so nice, and she thinks I'm just some good guy in the neighborhood. And then she'd tell the cops where to find me, thinking she's helping me out. And I get busted by the person trying to help me.
You always think you're invisible and that people don't ever remember you, but you're very, very memorable.
Yeah.
So you're always surprised when everyone knows who you are.
I remember thinking, you were here that at the time. I was like, really?
Yeah, exactly.
What, are you a cop or are you writing a book? So anyway, Elizabeth, do you want to wash this all down with a talk back?
Oh, that'd be perfect.
Producer D, can you favor us with one?
Of course.
Talkbacks. Oh my God, did he just say that?
OMG.
Okay, so I was listening to the latest episode, and I'm from Milton, Florida, and I'm just kind of internally freaking out that my hometown was mentioned on Ridiculous Crime. This is so cool. Update, y'all just shouted out KOA campgrounds, and I'm over here fangirling.
Yes, that's right, girl. KOA for life.
Oh, I love it. It is weird. I'm sure it's weird to hear small towns mentioned.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But you know what? We like to span coast to coast, seas to seas.
They used to call me Captain Floribama because I know that spot.
Yeah, you do know those.
As always, you can find us online at Ridiculous Crime and social medias, and we have our account, Ridiculous Crime Pod, on YouTube. Go check it out. We also have a website, ridiculouscrime.com. I think we just won, what was it, the Pulitzer?
Yes.
For best website.
Yes.
Which was a shock to us. We didn't even know we were nominated.
They created
Big
that
news.
for us, yeah.
So also, as obviously, we love your talkback. So please go to the iHeart app, download it, record one, maybe hear your voice here, and we can all go, yeah!
Ow!
And also, you email us if you like. If you like to keep it old school, go to ridiculouscrime@gmail.com, and please start that email, dear producer D. Thank you for listening. We will catch you next crime. Ridiculous Crime is hosted by Elizabeth Dutton and Zaron Burnett. Produced and edited by the Scourge of Providence, Dark Dave Couston. And starring Annalise Rucker as Judith. Research is by Mauve Marissa Brown. Our theme song is by Technicolor Thomas Lee and Tourmaline Travis Dutton. The host wardrobe provided by Botany 500. Guest hair and makeup by Sparkle Shot and Mr. Rondre. Executive producers are Bright Blue Ben Bowen and Nightshade Noel Brown.
Ridiculous crime.
Say it one more time.
Ridiculous crime.
Ridiculous Crime is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.